Boat crossings now. The one-day record for migrant crossings has been broken after 800 people made the journey in small boats yesterday. Now, this comes as the think tank Institute for Public Policy Research warned that the government's lack of action on migration risks creating a perma-backlog. Let's find out more from our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. You can say the government's lack of action. It's not as if surely you can accuse them of not trying, Olivia.
You really can't accuse them of not trying, and I think it's quite easy for people on all sides of the political spectrum to feel a little bit sorry for Rishi Sunak. He has put a lot of different plans and policies in place. He agreed a deal with the Albanian Prime Minister earlier this year, which brought down Albanians crossing the Channel by 90%. He's been desperately trying to get his Rwanda plan through the Lords, and yet, of course, there is simply a never-ending queue of migrants who want to come to Britain. So how on earth is the Prime Minister going to deal with that? And this report from the IPPR is really quite damning. I mean, maybe we can take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. It is a pretty left-leaning think tank. But what it's predicting is that very soon, because of the backlog of migrants, the perma-backlog, as they put it, we could have the cost of housing migrants in this country rising to £5 billion. Now, that's because there are already 130,000 waiting to go back per year. Yeah. Yes. So essentially what you've got is a situation where the government just can't remove migrants as quickly as they are arriving. So even if you go by the government's own assumptions, which are pretty optimistic, that eventually they'll be able to bring 500 migrants per month to Rwanda, you are still going to be having sort of 500 a day coming into the UK, which means that there are going to be a lot of people waiting in limbo, because by UK and international law, they can't just be sent back to their home countries.
Or, in their words, a perma-backlog.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, surely we've got that already.
I mean, we do have that already. The IPPR is just pointing out that perhaps Rwanda isn't the silver bullet that the government is saying that it will be. They say that once we've got this plan to send back all migrants straight back to a third country without having to have the long hearing process, that will solve the problem. But of course, even, Rwanda doesn't have endless space to take more people. So even if they're managing to send back 500 a month, which was really at the upper end of the predictions, then still you're going to have this issue.
On the subject of space, you say Rwanda hasn't maybe got the space or whatever, but what about time? How long has Rishi Sunak got, if he hasn't got this sorted by whenever the next general election is called next year, is he toast?
Well, it's interesting to see that Rishi Sunak has stopped saying stop the boats. We heard sound bites of Rishi Sunak for the first half of this year all over the place. Now he's accepted that it won't be possible to stop the boats by the next general election. I mean, it's possible that the public will sort of appreciate that he has tried to make progress, and perhaps if there is a breakthrough with his Rwanda plan, which, let's remember, is still struggling through the courts, we still haven't managed to actually deport anyone to Rwanda. As Labour have pointed out, more Conservative Home Secretaries have been to Rwanda than actual migrants. So perhaps people will appreciate that he sort of tried to make progress, and as Rishi Sunak has pointed out, the numbers are a little bit down on last year, but I mean, will that be enough?
It's interesting, I don't know if you saw our discussion of this topic an hour ago, and we were talking about the poll that was around recently that showed that leaving the European Convention of Human Rights would cost the Tories votes. And we decided to do our own poll of GB News viewers specifically. We asked, should we scrap the ECHR? And 82% of people on Twitter, GB News viewers and listeners this morning, saying we absolutely should. So actually, I think only a quarter of the public are in favour of this, and indeed Conservatives saying they wouldn't vote Conservative if we did. But interesting to see 82% of our poll this morning in favour.
It's really interesting, and I think we're seeing quite a lot of Conservative MPs moving to that way of thinking as well. I've spoken to sort of former policy makers, people like Nick Timothy, who was big in Theresa May's government, or Lord Frost, saying that they think it's time to leave the ECHR, simply because trying to get the Rwanda legislation through while that ECHR legislation is in place is sort of one step forward, two steps back. So I think that GB News viewers are probably in line now with quite a lot of Conservative MPs and actually a few cabinet ministers.